In this video, we will see what exactly you have to do in project management or project planning. So in that you can see 3 points in front of you. First is your plan schedule management, define activities and sequence activities, in which you get P method and SID method, two methods. So we will know about these methods in this video. So first of all, whenever your project starts or you start it, the data that you take in the meeting, you have to put it in verbs. But before creating these, you have to rearrange the details or activities that you have. You have to define those activities step by step. You have to create it. So the activity details with the detailing we update it. So we call it plan digital management. Or generally the details you provide or the activities you add. So generally all these details include what activities or what operations you perform in it. Suppose in your phase 1, so you can add all the activities and sub-activities in this process in detail. Second is define activity or define tasks. So you have to define the tasks that you are scheduling or matching them with the relation activity in detail in the project. So you can update all those defined activities in that. After that comes your sequence activities. Sequence activities means whatever is your sequence. The relations that you saw in the previous video, what relations are there in it. Like there are two types of it. Okay, so here you will get to see that. What types were there in which you are overlapping and sequential? Okay, so you can see here there are two types, sequential and overlapping. So in sequential, we saw that where your project starts first, or after the previous project, or after the previous activity is completed, your next activity starts. We call it sequential, and in overlapping means that two activities start in parallel. So overlapping is the name of the activity. So we will distribute these activities in sequential and overlapping in two types. After that, the next step is what do you do with these activities? You define it with different types or methods. So there is a method called precedence diagramming method. So what happens in the precedence diagramming method? A task or something, then with its end position or with its end node, you show the relations with your next activity. Okay, so what we call this method, or we call it arrow. So we call this method temp precedence diagramming method, which indicates the relationship between two nodes. Okay, so this is the method of kin network, which has 4 relations types. Like we saw, two, sequence and overlapping. So in those you have 4 types, which is this: finish to start, start to finish finish, and start to start. So these two methods are in sequential method, finish to start and start to finish, and these two are in overlapping method. So we will see their example, what is finish to finish, start to start. So we will see in detail why it works and what exactly it is. So first of all, you have to understand that I have a task which is finished or start means your task is A and task is B. So when your task A finishes, then your task B will start. Till my A task doesn't finish, till then I can start B task. So what we call this finish to start. This is your first type. Finish to start means the activity is starting till it doesn't end. Your B activity can start. So this is your A to B relation. We call it finish to start. Second is start to finish. Start to finish. So what will come next in start to finish? Till your running activity is A and your next activity is B. B activity doesn't start, till then your A activity won't end. So this is called start to finish, means that after B activity starts, your A activity can end. So what we will call it start to finish. So we will see the examples of these two, what exactly happens. Like, consider that finish to start means that your brickwork, you have finished your brickwork, you have to plaster it. Okay, you have to plaster it. So what is this? Finish to start. Till the time your brickwork work is not finished, till then can you start plastering? You can, so we call this finish to start. Next comes your start to finish. Start to finish, suppose you have 2 watchmen in your company, A and B watchmen. Timing of both is from 8 to 8, means first is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. working hours, and 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. omit 8 a.m. workings from 8 a.m. Okay? So in this case, working schedule is in day shift and it's night shift. A work schedule is about to end, it's 9 o'clock right now, but still B watchman is not available yet means its working hasn't started yet till then. This A watchman, can he finish his activity? Can he leave his work? No, so till B watchman comes and take charge of this case. Till then one activity will not be finished, so in this case what we call it start to finish. Okay, so you must have understood both the examples, so in this way we have seen these two activities. What exactly is this? One is your this and this is your last one. So now we have to see either finish to finish or start to start. This comes in your overlapping. What is overlapping? That my task is A and the second task is B. So in A task has a duration of 6 days and B task has a duration of 4 or 5 days. So here, how many days was A? It was 6 days duration. I will show it to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And B duration is about 3 days. Or in this, B duration is 4 days. So now see here, as you create here, means you are taking any activity in this still. If the start date of both the A and B is same, then the project is starting on the same date. But the end date is variable. But the start date of both the A and B is starting on the same date. So what we will call this, start to start, the starting date will be same of A activity and B activity. So what we will call this case start to start. Second comes finish to finish activity. Finish to finish means, suppose I have a task which is of 6 days and B task is of 4 days. So we will put dependencies in these two that when the finish date of these two will be same. But start date will be different. It starts on 4th, it will start on 6th, but when it ends both the task will end on 8th. So what we will call this finish to finish, okay, finish to finish. So there are two tasks in which you can update it start to start and finish to finish. In this way you can assign your activities. Multiple activities are included in this. You can show more than 2 activities in this relationship. This is called sequence activities. After this sequence, when you save any activity or you want to add it, then you get different dependencies in this activity. You get different dependencies. Every object depends on you, so what are the dependencies of each object? What are the dependencies? Like we saw in the previous video, that start to start, finish to finish. So there are some rules and regulations for that. So what we call it? Dependencies. So what are the mandatory dependencies? There are 4 types of dependencies are mandatory dependencies. Dependencies, external dependencies and internal dependencies. So the first type is the mandatory dependencies. So in mandatory dependencies, until our previous activity is not finished, until you finish the previous activity, you cannot start the next activity. So what we will call this is mandatory dependencies. We have seen an example in this, that suppose you have not finished the brickwork and you have started plastering. It will not work there. Until your brickwork is not finished, you can start plastering. So what we will call this mandatory dependencies. Second comes your discretionary dependencies. So what will happen in discretionary dependencies? That your preferred logic means that you have previously done some same type of work, and on the basis of that work you will decide in next project, project manager or project team head or project team. So you have to decide with them what are the dependencies and when to execute particular activity or what activities you have to execute. So all these things to you in discrete dependencies. So in discretionary dependency is the same logic you have used previously, and then previously the same work you have done, though there are different projects, but in previous project you have done the same work. So according to that experience in next project you will see when you have to execute that activity. Next comes your external dependencies. So sometimes your project depends on some other activities. For example, you have a project of concreting that is about to start, but there is no sand or delivery available on the site. So what will we call this? External dependencies. Those are not included in the project. So those things are called external dependencies. So you have to depend on the other person. It is not in your hands what changes you have to make. When to start your activity, till the time it is not delivered, till then your activity, or they can start the activity. So we will call it external dependencies. After that comes your internal dependencies. What is internal dependency? Similarly, it is opposite of external, as you understand. For example, we take any plan or project for which there are some changes in the work, and that is from your senior authority approval. In this case, your work is delayed. So what we call this internal dependencies. These are the four types of dependencies which you have to remember while scheduling. The whole project will depend on this. Next is predecessors and successors. What is the meaning of predecessors and successors? Predecessor means previously dependent activity or previously depending on the task or activity. So we will call it predecessors. And successors means the next activity or task or the next performance. So what will we call it? Successors. So we will try to understand the network diagram in detail. Like I told you in the PDM, what exactly is the network diagram? Let's say my activity is initiated and starts from here. So after starting, your activities are coming. As soon as my activity starts, activity will start, C activity will start, and G activity will also start. It is starting parallelly. In start to start, all three activities are started. After that, in start to finish, B activity will perform after A, and D activity will perform after B. D activity will perform after C, and E activity will perform after D. Until your D activity doesn't end, till then your E activity cannot start. Till the time your G activity doesn't end, your E activity can perform. So these are dependencies. After E activity, your F activity will start. After F activity ends, your project will end. So what are predecessors and successors exactly? So here you can see that for A, your predecessor is start, C is for start, G is for start. B and D are for A and C, E is for B, D and G. So these are your predecessors because E depends on them. So we will call it as predecessor. After that, for F activity, what will be the predecessor? E will be the predecessor, okay? And for this end activity, what will be the predecessor? F will be the predecessor. So this is your predecessor. And after this comes your successor. What does successor mean? That what is going to come after this. So for start, what is your successor? A, C, and G. These are your successors. Then for A, what is your successor? B is D, G is E, B and D is also E. Successor is next activity and predecessor is previous activity. If we try to understand it in simple language, then this is successor and predecessor. So in this network diagram, you had exactly understood what exactly happens, that every activity is how dependent it is on others. So in this way, you have to create dependencies for the whole project and you have to create this network diagram.